Wow, what a week it's been. Welcome back. Let's get into it. Let's get straight into it. Um, good evening, Chelsea fans. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone's settled down from the weekend. Look, it was a bit of a mad one last week. Let's get straight into it. Chelsea won the Champions League. They did. I still can't believe I'm saying that, but they got it done. The game itself was strange. I mean, it started off obviously Pep deciding not to play the team or play a structure that he normally plays all season. So 59 out of 60 games they played with a central midfielder, a holding midfielder. So Rodri or Fernandinho was in there almost every single game, and the biggest game of their season. Biggest game, arguably the biggest game in their existence, you could probably say. I'd say it's probably the most important game in their existence, really, because this is the highest level in terms of one-off game. And Pep Roulette struck again. He put Sterling in there, who's been terrible all season. And he went away from his normal tried and tested method, and he didn't put any holding mids in there. So Chelsea, being Chelsea, I mean, they definitely deserved it. There's no doubt about it. Like City, I mean, for how badly City played, Chelsea played well. They had chances. They got forward. They defended well. City only had one shot on target. Can't even remember who that was from, because they defended that well. There wasn't any clean cut. I don't remember a clean cut chance for City at all. And obviously, your boy Kai Havertz is finally stepping up. He seems like he's kind of had a good sort of end of the season, popped a few goals in, and now he's scored in the biggest game of the season. In a situation where they needed someone like that. The goal he scored, through ball, beat the keeper, and compose finish. Like, that's his job. So, listen, he got it done. Chelsea, going forward, are looking like a problem, if they weren't already. I mean, they spent enough money. I mean, to be fair, anytime any team spends a lot of money, at some point you need results, and it probably took them longer just because of Lampard. But the players are kind of sticking to it. Still not sure about Timo Werner. He keeps getting game time, and keeps missing chances, keeps being offside. We'll see how he goes next season, but certainly, going forward, Havertz looks like the guy. Defensively, look like a good team. They look solid. Tuchel's come in. I mean, the thing is, Tuchel got a bad rep in PSG. Pretty much because they didn't win the Champions League. But as we see every single year, PSG just don't win the Champions League. Probably more from mentality and the attitudes of their players rather than ability. Because ability-wise, they've got one of the best teams in Europe, in the world. They've got some of the best players in the world. So there's no reason why they shouldn't win. I mean, defensively they're sound. Midfield, they've got good midfielders. They've got Mbappe and Neymar, which is enough to win any football match. And they've got a lot of money and a lot of depth. So, we're at PSG anyway, but that's, Tuchel was a very good manager. Did well in Germany before that. So, I mean, bear in mind, he got to the Champions League final with PSG last year, jumps in halfway through this season, gets through Atletico Madrid, who have won the Spanish league, so they're the best team in Spain, apparently. They beat Porto, but Porto beat Juventus, Ronaldo's team. And then Chelsea went and beat Real Madrid over two legs, who were chasing the league at the time. And now they've gone and beat the consensus best team in the. I mean, before Saturday, after they smashed Everton, City were looking unstoppable. So Saturday comes, and then it's like, all right, cool, City should win this one quite comfortably. And now all of a sudden it's like, are we sure? Like, City still are, in a overall the best team in Europe. But they just didn't have it on the weekend. So Tuchel's really turned them around. Going forward, they'll be fine. I mean, they've got, FA Cup final, fourth in the league, Champions League next year. They've won the Champions League now. City obviously won the league, won the Carabao Cup because they've got the best squad. Chelsea beat them in the FA Cup, and now obviously Chelsea beat them in the Champions League final as well. So it's hardly panic stations. Like I said, they've still got a ridiculous team, and they'll probably add to it. Certainly up front, I think they'll buy one of the strikers that's available, whether it's Haaland, Mbappe, let's hope not, or Kane. So depending on who Man U get. Man U, I feel like Man U, Chelsea, City are all going to buy top strikers. Aguero's gone to Barcelona, so they're not going to buy Haaland or Mbappe. You'd have thought. And then Ronaldo, I guess, will go to PSG with Neymar, from the sounds of it, anyway. So yeah, that's the kind of the state of play. Obviously, the league's over, so the domestic campaign's over. European Championships next week, which is crazy to think we've got there that quickly. And there's literally no rest for these guys at all, like none. Like they played the season through late, like last year. They had some time off for COVID, but started the new season a little bit late. Played 2 times. Some of the United players and some of the City players have played twice a week, all year long. They've not had a midweek off. So next year, I mean, if some of the teams with stacked up with Premiership players go deep into the Euros, there's going to be some serious fatigue next year, because you're going to get 4 weeks. Well, July, 6 weeks maybe off, which isn't going to be enough for some of these guys who've played through seasons with injuries. Speaking of playing through seasons with injuries, but not really. Man United lost to Villarreal, the boys in yellow. Pretty interesting game. I mean, the first half was very one-sided. Villarreal played obviously very defensive. Well, I say obviously, they played very defensively. Almost no threat going forward. Nicked a goal in from defensive lapse on Lindelof's part. But I mean, the lineup Ole put out was a strong one. Only two central midfielders, one of them being Pogba, so that obviously means you're not going to do a whole lot of defending, which we didn't need to do. Played our best players: Rashford, Greenwood, Fernandes, and Cavani. All your best players out. So okay, go win the game. And then we played, 90 minutes, went through, obviously went a goal down, got a goal back. Sort of looked like fatigue was kicking in. And I think towards the end of 90 minutes, obviously you're thinking extra time's probable here. Villarreal made 5 subs. So throughout the last 20 minutes or so, they started swapping the players out. So obviously going into extra time, half of their outfield team was replaced and fresh. Whereas our starting team had played all I think up until the 100th minute. So even deep into extra time, there's still the same lineup out there, which I don't blame them for, because the players that were needed to be, the players you'd want to replace in a game you're trying to go and win are the attackers, and you just can't take. We were playing our best 5 attackers, so you can't take any of them off on paper. So I mean, you had people like Mata, Fred, Ahmad, James, Matic, Williams, and Tuanzebe. So in terms of depth, there's depth there in terms of, okay, we need to swap out, a defender, left back, centre mid, or maybe rotate the forward players in a lesser game. But there's no top striker or top forward or dynamic midfielder that we got to bring off the bench and change the game. So that was an issue. I never thought squad depth would be an issue. But I guess quality squad depth is probably there is a difference, obviously. I guess you look at some of Chelsea's bench, most of Chelsea's bench, and City's bench as well. Those two definitely have quality to come off the bench. Now, whether or not the players who are playing there should be playing there and why they're on the bench, all that kind of stuff, but it's a good problem to have until it's not, until you've got people that are just not playing well, they're sitting on the bench. But again, not panic. I mean, let's be honest, it's not panic stations either. However, another semi-final, final defeat for Ole and United is not ideal. So at some point, I think next season is the one. It's either you either win stuff there or we've got to start looking for a new manager because I think now has been long enough. I think this season you had the whole season, and there's been multiple times where specifically man management or tactical management rather has been the issue. So we need to start. Hopefully, Ollie will get a good grip because he's not a bad manager. He'll definitely, and he's got a good relationship with the group, which is the reason why he's still here. He's most managers wouldn't have lasted this long, making some of the mistakes he has. But we will see how next year goes. Have to win stuff next year. Oh, he's definitely gone 100%. Because at this point, with some of the players we've got in, obviously if we buy the right players, Sancho, probably not a striker now. We've kept Cavani for another year. Sancho and centre back, and sort that goalkeeper situation out. Because so I guess going forward to the reason why the goalkeeper situation was an issue and the squad depth was an issue, through extra time they dominated. Villarreal completely dominated the game, and we were kind of hanging on a little bit, looking leggy and tired, and made the subs before penalties. Lost the penalty shootout 11-10, which doesn't happen very often. All of your outfield players, the entire team on both entire teams take all their penalties, which very rarely happens. So David De Gea has got a bad record at taking saving penalties. He's let in the last 25 apparently that he's faced, and he hasn't saved a penalty since 2016. FA Cup final or semi-final against Romelu Lukaku. So knowing that, and knowing that Henderson was on the bench and he saved 9 out of 17, or just under, just about 50%. No, I think he's let in less than 50%. So whether it was missed or hit the post or something, but yes, Henderson's got a 50-50-ish record with penalties, and De Gea doesn't. Has got a 0% record in the last 5 years, over the last 25. Hindsight's great, but I think they're the kind of things you probably should know, and you probably should act on. Again, going back to the tactical issue. I mean, people have done that. You change your goalkeeper out for the specialist, if there is a specialist there, and normally your main goalkeeper isn't terrible at saving penalties. That actually is probably the bigger, the bigger issue. To be fair. Normally they can save penalties, so lost the penalty shootout because De Gea let all his in, he conceded them all, and then missed his penalties. He was the one to miss, which is, we got people like Dan James and Lindelof scoring their penalties. It kind of is like, it's crazy to think that we lose because our goalkeeper can't take a penalty, but it is what it is. Next year's new year, we're in the Champions League. Top 4 will be as it is: Chelsea, United, Liverpool, City, in whichever order. Whoever buys the best players, I think, is gonna win the league next year. And if failing that, it'll be City again. So I don't think Chelsea, United are there yet. Liverpool, it'll take a good effort for Liverpool to get back to title contenders, from almost coming out top 4 to getting a nice run towards the end of the season and then sneaking in. I wouldn't have thought they would be favourites, but listen, it should be very, very interesting. Football being done, tennis started. Grand Slam, French Open started last week. Obviously, it's only 3 days in, so nothing really has happened so far, other than few of the top women are out. Muguruza's out, and Andreescu. And the bottom half of the draw, so Serena Williams' half of the draw is quite open. So she's got a chance to finally break the record for most Grand Slams. So she's been sitting on for a while. So I don't know how many finals she's lost in a row, but she's lost a lot of finals, lost a lot of the semi-finals. So she's finally going for that all-time record. On the men's side, Dominic Thiem's out, 2-time finalist, number 4 in the world, I think. And you've got Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, all in the top half, because the way the rankings is based on the world rankings, not on the French Open rankings or how well you've done at that particular tournament. So that's why Nadal was 3rd seed, even though he's won 13 French Opens. So men's tournament's going to get interesting later on. The women's tournament is interesting is I don't know if that's the word. It's in the news at the minute because of Naomi Osaka, world number 2, one of the favourites for the tournament. said beforehand, she said she's not going to do interviews at the tournament, and she'll pay whatever fines it is. She doesn't want to do interviews at the tournament. And it's kind. She's always been like shy, reserved, quite nervous, anxious type of character. And the French Open said, well, they fined her the first time, so she missed the first interview, and then they said they will expel her from the tournament if she doesn't do interviews. So she withdrew, which is brave, very brave, given you're one of the top people. It's all well and good. Well, it's not well and good, but it's different if you're not a top in the limelight, well-known public player with a favourite for the tournament. You can say, "Oh, I'm not going to play." That the sponsors won't be as fussed. But I mean, number two, the face of women's tennis at the minute. She is probably the face of women's tennis at the minute. Said she's not going to do interviews to protect her mental health, and the French Open said, "Well, you have to do interviews because you do." But it's very difficult because I think in the world of sport that we live in, as I mentioned last week, the week before that, reasons why I like athletics, etc. Money drive. The reason why people are playing is because there's money there, and the reason why people are playing on television for 1.4 million, that's what the winner gets. That is because Rolex, Omega, whoever, Nike, Adidas, pump money into the tournament so that there's prize money there. So if they say, or the organisers say, we want to obviously have, all the players talk to the people and obviously get their brand out there, and their sponsors will want to see them do interviews. It's literally in contract. They've signed a contract to say they have to go. And if someone says they don't want to do it, I mean, the next step, I guess, if you're following it, would be you just don't get paid. You don't play the tournament, which she's followed. So by the letter of what you should do, she's followed it. She said, "I don't want interviews," and they said, "Well, you can't play." And she said, "Okay, I won't play." So in terms of going forward, the wider issue, there isn't a wider issue in my opinion, in terms of the reason why she's left. There isn't a wider issue. Like, if you don't feel up to doing anything in life, you shouldn't have to do it. But then also you're not gonna, if you don't want to go to work, you won't get paid to go to work. So there's the issue isn't doing less interviews should be written into the contracts, because that will never happen for the reasons I just mentioned. But there is something, so you said, and there's a big discussion to be had about how intrusive you can be to someone's life. And if someone's not feeling up to it, then they should be allowed to say or do whatever they want in terms of protecting their mental health. So that's kind of it's a kind of a polarizing in the sense that people know that you're supposed to do interviews, but also interviews aren't generally looked favourably. You can have meltdowns in interviews and people kind of take it quite lightheartedly and clickbaity, and you're a meme forever. So, Allen Iverson practice, there's a big story behind that. He lost someone close to him, he's stressed, there's a lot of things going on in private life, and that was more of a genuine blow-up rather than just quickly losing his temper. So that kind of a thing, if you hear these people talk about it, there's probably something in there, something to be done, something to be said. Well, number one, I guess, you need to look after the stars, because I think a lot of people kind of don't see them as people, and they're kind of seen as more, or they're seen as superstars, which by definition isn't a person. It's kind of almost separate. So Ronaldo is kind of seen as just this kind of like figure, as opposed to like just a guy called Cristiano Ronaldo. It's that kind of thing. So it's gonna be interesting going forward, see what the fallout is here, and see how long she takes. She says she's gonna take a break. So I don't know when she'll be back. I don't know what kind of changes will be made going forward. I guess we will have to see how that develops. But as far as the tournament's looking quite interesting. It's obviously on clay, so I'd expect Nadal to get it done. Nadal will play Djokovic in semi-finals at some point, and Serena Williams has a bit of a path, because one of the top people who has her number. To be fair, Osaka beats Williams more often than not. Is out. So I guess we'll see how that develops going forward. The NBA obviously happened. Has been happening this past week. Since last week, I kind of predicted the Bucks would sweep, and obviously they've swept because it's night and day between the Bucks and the Miami Heat. We went to the finals last year, but it was in a bubble. I think we're starting to see now the difference between bubble and out of bubble competition. You know, no fans, same arena, quick schedule. There's no chance to kind of go up or down. It's like whoever's feeling hot at the time goes. So Miami Heat beat the Bucks last year in the bubble, and the Bucks are one of the favourites for the whole title, as they are this year, but probably more strongly favoured last year because the Nets weren't as good as they are now. So the Bucks swept. They're in, no problem. The next two most impressive teams, the Nets and the 76ers. The Nets are 3-1 up on the Celtics. They lost a game just before last week. They're looking like the best. They're looking for sure like favourites. I mean, they lost a game. You can lose one game in a best of seven. It kind of happens. You have a night off. But they're far too good for the Celtics, so I expect them to get it done. The 76ers lost last night to the Wizards, and their best players got injured. He's having an MRI now, or just today. So we'll see where that turns up. If he's out, that could change a few things because he'd be second in the MVP voting, I think, second or third. So one of the best players in the league could be out for the rest of the playoffs. The next two are kind of, they've had some issues, but I guess they're figuring it out. The Utah Jazz, the number one team record-wise in the NBA, lost the first game to the Grizzlies randomly, Memphis Grizzlies, but they've now won 3 in a row, so I'd expect them to get the fourth one. But I think the 76ers, the Nets, and the Bucks are looking very, very impressive. The Jazz, one step down slightly, but I think they'll come through and win that. And then the Hawks, who are probably one of the more interesting series, the Hawks and the Knicks. Trae Young has kind of antagonized the New York Knicks quite a lot, spoke a lot during the game, shushing the crowd, doing a lot of animations, and obviously playing well. They threw one of them. The crowd. There's an issue with the crowds at the minute. So some guy in the crowd spat at Trae Young. Another one threw a water bottle at Russell Westbrook. Another one last night in the 76ers game, a guy ran on. I've never seen a fan run onto the court in a game certainly in recent memory. It might have happened in the 70s or something, but not in modern NBA. Guys that just run onto the court, which is insane to think that could even happen. But probably the bigger story than the actual NBA playoffs at the minute is the fact the fans are acting out of pocket, like just unruly as hell. So we'll see how that develops, if there's going to be more security there. But that's become a big issue. So yeah, like I was saying, so fans spat at Trae Young, whose team is up 3-1. They're looking quite decent. The only problem is they're going to play the 76ers in the next round. So it's going to be good night, Irene, now, I think. The East is, they're all very one-sided series, all four of them. They're all 3-1 or 4-0. The West, I guess the first game in the West, like I mentioned, the Utah Jazz are up 3-1. The two that are quite close, the two that are close, three of them are level, two of them are close. The Clippers and the Mavericks are up 2-0. The Clippers were struggling bad, and now they've managed to get back to 2-2. And normally in playoff series, like if you win 2 games in a row, the momentum is heavy with you. You got to really fall off to not get that series done. So I'd expect the Clippers to win that series. Luka's kind of doing it all himself, struggling a bit to get wins lately anyway, that's for sure. So that series is kind of poised technically because it's 2-2, anyone can still win that. But I think the Clippers have big momentum, like the Jazz, but which happens to be 2-2, not 3-1. Momentum has gone, in the last 2 series I'm going to mention, are all over the place. Lakers and the Phoenix Suns has been literally back and forth. It looked like the Lakers were going to start picking up and start running away, but they lost Game 4 at home. I think it was at home. Yeah, lost Game 4 at home, and Anthony Davis has got injured again. So LeBron's playing hero ball again. He has to try and carry the team, which at this point I don't think he can do the same way he did before. He still can obviously do it better than probably anyone else in the league, certainly at age 36. But it's struggle city now for LeBron because the Phoenix Suns are good. They're such a good team. DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker are outstanding. Chris Paul is excellent, and even their squad players are very good as well. Whereas Lakers are shooting is terrible. Health is obviously not a good. They're not keeping themselves fit. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's been out. LeBron's come back from high ankle sprain. Anthony Davis has now injured his groin again. I don't know what it is with him. His injury record is shambolic. So I think from here, the Phoenix Suns should win. Lakers needed to win game 4 at home and then hold on and try and get one of the last 3. But now they have to win 2 out of the last 3. And 2 of the last 3 are going to be at Phoenix, who have the second best record in the league, and they're good away from home. Well, they're certainly good at home. So yeah, that could be all she wrote for LeBron this year. First playoff exit in 15 attempts in the first round. And the only series that's actually dead even is Portland and Denver. So the MVP candidate, Nikola Jokic, that's gone 1-0, 1-1, 2-1. It's just like now it's completely even. Trailblazers won the last game. So they've got home court advantage back, if that makes sense. They've got 2 of their next 3 at home. So they should get that one done. And then the winners will face the winners of LeBron and the Phoenix Suns. So it's poised quite nicely. The West is poised very nicely. We'll see. And all the games, apart from the Memphis and Utah one, the other 3 are they've got a lot of interesting storylines. So we'll see what happens with those. That's gonna be very interesting over the next week. And yeah, it should be round 2 by next time I speak to you. So we'll see what these semi-finals look like and see if anyone's magic to a comeback and to winning seven games. If any of the games are going to get exciting, I think it's going to be the Dallas Clippers game, Lakers Suns game. If LeBron goes into 2015 Savage mode, then Lakers might get to Game 7 and then he'll have to do it again in Game 7. So LeBron's going to have to go Savage in superhero mode at least twice to get through this round. And then he's going to have to try and beat Portland with or without Anthony Davis. And then he's going to have to try and beat maybe the Clippers or maybe Utah. And then he's going to have to beat the most unbelievable offensive team ever assembled in Brooklyn. So, LeBron fans, it's probably not going to be time. But here's LeBron James. He's the only one you could really, given that all the things that stacked against him, he's probably the only one you would say has got a chance of getting back in this one. So, we will see. Speaking of we will see, the only real thing going on this weekend is going to be the Formula 1 in Azerbaijan. It's a track Mercedes have done well in. This is probably the narrative for all the tracks, but it's not a Red Bull track. It's not one they've always been at the front row and winning races. Hamilton and Bottas have both won a race there. But the problem is Red Bull's flexi wing, which the ruling body have said after the next race. They said before Monaco, after France, which is the next one after this next weekend, we're going to introduce heavier testing to make sure that the wing doesn't flex further than it needs to at heavier weights to kind of obviously mimic faster speeds. Because I think the test, based on the videos I've watched, the testing they've got is to a certain level and nothing above that. And it seems like the above that is super high speeds, and the testing they've got basically isn't adequate enough to prove what they're doing is illegal. So it's kind of inconclusive, which is pretty bad, given that the wing decreasing in size, being more flexible. So if it sits more, obviously less drag. It's going to go through the air quicker, faster top line speed, and then because it's obviously not a drag wing, which is a low one, when it goes back up to its normal height, we only talk about millimeters, but that makes a big difference. When it goes back up to its normal height in the corners, that's when you do have drag, slows the car down. So obviously you got the best of both worlds, and the rules explicitly say you can't have a flexi wing. It's got to be one rigid-ish wing with a bit of give that goes around, that obviously passes all the load testing. If you have a wing that can kind of, it's almost like a hybrid wing, they're kind of illegal, or they are illegal. So if Red Bull are allowed to run it, if there's no protest, Red Bull are looking like heavy favourites for this next race for that particular reason. But we'll see. The championship is literally swinging back and forth. It's, this week, obviously Red Bull have all the momentum after Monaco because it went so bad for Mercedes. So feeling is bad in Monaco in Mercedes' camp, but they'll be super motivated to get back up. And I think Red Bull would rather chase than lead. I mean, you'd always, being in the lead is quite good, but I think if you've got a veteran who's chasing, they know how to chase and put pressure on. And Red Bull, who had a few wobbles. I mean, obviously Monaco's great, but they had a few wobbles otherwise. So watch this space and see how that all develops. But as always, appreciate if you've got this far. Well done. Appreciate you. Hit the like. If you've got this far, definitely hit the like. Congratulations. Say this far, it's only half hour, but appreciate it as always. If you watch it, you'll be back next week, and this will be gone. Most of you will be pleased to know Europe is blue.